And I looked at the doc and I go, hey man, so what's the worst that could happen? He goes, if you land on it wrong or something goes, something goes sideways with the way that you lunge, or you get hit, like you get surf hit and slam into a rock or something like that. He said the bone could sliver off and then sever one of there's not only a nerve bundle, but there's also a bunch of arteries and veins that are inside your pelvis. He goes, those could get severed. You could internally bleed out and die. And I went, okay, so that's the worst. Got it. So he goes, okay, what's most likely can happen? He goes, you'll go through a lot of pain, but you'll be okay. And I went, okay. And I looked at him. I actually asked him, I said, hey man, what do you think I should do? Doc didn't say a word. He took that Marine Corps bulldog and just put it right in front of me, and then just put his hands together and looked up at me. And I went, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Sign me up. Let's do this.
Welcome to Mindset Lessons from the Field. I'm Gina Casazza, the author of the upcoming memoir, Training with the SEAL. And today's guest started in the Marine Corps for 9 years before switching to the Navy and becoming a SEAL. Today, he has his own consulting firm called Divine Savagery to give back and show others critical life skills that he picked up in his 25 years of serving. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited to introduce you to Tommy. Tommy, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, I appreciate you for having me. This is cool.
I'm excited. I'm excited to talk to you. I want to know, first of all, I actually haven't had anybody on the show that, I don't believe I had anybody on the show that started in the Marines and then switched over to being a SEAL, or to just switching to just go into another department in general. What made you do that?
Well, I mean, aside from, there's a lot of jokes too that I tell all my buddies, and they ask why you do it. And I always say I needed a break from the Marines. Can't figure out what I'm going to do with my life or something like that. But it just turned into, I wanted something different. I wanted to advance to a different level. I wanted to challenge myself, on another way of doing things. And it's just my ground time was coming to an end in the Marine Corps. And it just so happened that my best friend and his twin brother were SEALs. And one of them had just finished up some a jump school down at Fort Bragg. And he'd come up to Camp Lejeune where I was at. And he said, hey, why don't you come over to the teams? I went, oh, okay, well, is that a thing? He goes, yeah, man, let's see if we can get this going. We know some people. We'll set you up with some interviews, and we'll set up the dominoes, and it's up to you to knock them down. I went, all right, cool, man, let's give this a go. And one of those things where it's just one day I was in a Marine Corps uniform, the next thing I was in the Navy and off to buds.
Wow, that's really interesting. How much background did you have into knowing where you wanted to go? Like, were you like, I want to join the service, I want to be a Marine, or was that how it went for you?
Yeah, I had family that was in the Marines, and it was always the first to fight. That was just the way it was. You want to be part of the best. I was like, okay, cool. I like being part of the best or something. Let's do the test and let's see what we got. Originally, I wanted to go into Force Recon, but that ended up not working out. I wanted to continue, serving, and I wanted to do it at the level that I knew I had the capacity to do so. So I was like, well, this seems like a crazy challenge. So I like challenges, and we're gonna roll with it. And as I started the process, which took about 2 years to happen, I took a B billet at the School of Infantry, and while that was going on, I had the warrant officer there when the admin. He goes, "Hey man, just to let you know, you've got a better chance of counting the stars with your finger than you do making this happen." And I went, challenge accepted. Okay, let's do this. So went through, did all the physical screening tests, and then all the paperwork to do. It's called an inter-service transfer. And God put the right people lined up in my life. And the colonel that was in charge of me at the time happened to work at Manpower and Reserve. So he knew all the right people to send the paperwork through, which that in and of itself took 9 months. And it was just go, go, go. And, I'd finally, with a lot of persistence, I tried. I mean, it took me 3 months originally just to get a hold of the Naval Special Warfare detailer. And I had to call 2 times a day and was sending 2 emails a day for 3 months straight before I even heard anything. And finally got an email that said, "Hey, I hear you're interested in Naval Special Warfare." And in my mind, I'm going, yeah, you think? So what do we got to do to get this process?
Yeah.
Never accepting no all the way through and pushing through. And then it finally, I got this letter in the mail with your set of orders that said, "Hey, this is your report date. And it's don't pass go, don't collect $200. You're going straight to buds." So next thing you know, I'm on the quarterdeck and we're rocking and rolling.
Wow, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned you kept emailing and calling and you're being really persistent. And I feel like a lot of times we send out an email or we do a phone call and someone doesn't follow up and we just kind of like, well, we tried, and
But did you though?
yeah, that's, did you try? Were you that persistent? And for you, it's like you really wanted something and you're like, I don't care how annoying I am going to be. I am going to get to where I need to go. And I think that's a really great takeaway from this. And what was it like for you? How similar and what were the differences between what you went through when you went into the Marines and then when you went into BUD/S?
I mean, I can probably sum it up in 2 words: culture shock.
All right.
The Marines are phenomenal for what it is that they do. When they say the change is forever, they're not kidding. So it's like a complete mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. It's a complete reset. They're very, very good at what they do. And the products that they get at the end of boot camp, officer candidate school, all the finishing schools, they get exactly what they want, right? They're deep rooted in history. They're very, very proud of what it is that they do. They take pride in good work, efficiency, being on time, like honestly, everything you need to be successful in anything. And that translates from garrison into the field. If you're disciplined in garrison, you'll be disciplined in the field. Same thing goes for in combat. Same thing goes for anywhere you're deployed. So being able to take that type of mentality, which is more of a, I call it the rock mentality of the Marines, and then the water mentality of the teams. So mix those together, and I guess we're making Jello. So, because you want the fluidity, but you want to have rigidity to be able to, flex from, but not so rigid that, if you flex, you break. That mindset shift when I checked on into BUD/S that the Navy individuals had was just a different mindset. It's a different job, right? It was very, very different. And the first couple of months were kind of rough for me because I kind of came in with that drill instructor mentality of like, why don't you guys, why isn't everything going orderly and, the way that it's supposed to? And it's, well, it's just the way you're brought up, right? So they get brought up differently, and it kind of showed. And for me to be able to take a step back, take a wrap off and go, look, man, you're going to lose people. Because I was the most senior guy there when I checked into BUD/S. They made me the class leader almost immediately. And it was just, I was losing the guys, and the instructors are like, well, is this guy going to cut it? And I had to step back and go, okay, I need to take this instead of the 5 meter target that's in front of me, I need to look at this from a 30,000 foot view and really, how can I make the greatest effect? So I had to kind of shift my mentality into what it would then become. And it actually helped me out. So it was good lessons learned. To be able to flex with your surroundings and be adaptable to what's around you in order to survive. Because, if you're going to take these guys, pass the word, do everything you need to do as, from passing from the staff at BUD/S out to the students, and then for it to be effective, and then try to get them everybody there where they need to with all their stuff and on time so they don't get beat for being late, or not having the right stuff. It took a lot in the beginning, but once we got rolling, I had some really good senior enlisted guys, the LPOs that were working for me and working with me, and they helped me out. And actually, one of them at one point was a former Marine also, so we kind of felt each other's pain, and we're like, all right, well, how can we be a more effective unit? And we kind of came together with something, and then if 2 of us were together, the tail's going to follow the head. So we had everything rolling, we had good attitudes, and the class ended up succeeding. So. But yeah, initially it was a big culture shock. What's
the mindset at BUD/S? You mentioned in the Marines, it's order, it's discipline. What's it over there?
It's kind of funny, but it almost goes into a survival mode because BUD/S is so physically challenging that everything everything goes on autopilot, and it becomes how strong is your mind. Now, I'm not saying I didn't get tested mentally in some of the initial training in the Marine Corps, but for them it was more. Then it was more discipline focused. It wasn't necessary. I mean, yes, there was physical. There was the force marches. There was the PTDO courses, things like that. But there was so much other stuff. There was the education behind it. There was the leadership in the field. There was understanding formations, understanding the orders process, and really, really turning you into a rifleman, a shooter. BUD/S is more of what I like to call a school for professional tough guys. Okay. At the end of it, you're not some awesome operator that, everybody thinks you are right at the end of BUDS. No, BUDS shows you that you can handle absolutely anything in any environment for any amount of duration. And you won't quit no matter what's thrown at you. The only way you're quitting is if you're dead. That's it, period. I think there's just a little bit different intent with that school. And then that's why we have the follow-on school of SEAL qualification training. And then it's even more so when you get to the platoon, because now you got to learn the platoon, special operator, their standard operating procedures and how they work as a platoon. So you go through the entire workup, then you go on deployment. All right, well, then you're a one-pump chump. You learn a little bit, but you're still not there yet. And you always say in the teams, you're not really a SEAL until you've done 3 platoons, and 3 deployments, because that's when you really start to understand. The horse blinders kind of open up a little bit more with the farther you go along. And then with the side billets and things that you do with that, you just learn and pick up more as you keep going. But it's really a maturation process.
I was listening to you on the podcast that you had where you mentioned environment and how that's a great equalizer, because anybody can perform when the environment is perfect. And I was listening to you say, like, you had a pro boxer, gold medalist, like all these like elite people. But, when the weather and the environment is just tough and the absolute worst of the worst, that's when the people are quitting. And, you could translate that to real life. It's like, yeah, I could perform amazing on a day when I'm feeling great, when my energy's up, when everything's going smooth. But then how do you perform on those really, really rough days? If you had to take all the stuff that you learned from the Marines and all the stuff that you've learned as a SEAL and throw it in together, create like that, those perfect lessons that you've learned along the way, like what would you take from the Marines? What would you take from the Navy and put it into civilian life?
Well, honestly, I could bend it all into one word: perseverance. And it's how bad do you want whatever it is that you're going for? And I was actually speaking to a company out in California this past week, and I was like, look, you guys want to produce more. You want to become more effective. How bad is it do you want the goal? Because for us, I'm going to go to the point to where I'm dead, legitimately. That's the only thing that's going to get me through this. Are you willing to go that far? Can you do that? I'm not saying you have to in the civilian world because the stakes aren't that high. But at the same time, do you want this as much as you want to breathe? If so, then there's nothing that can stop you. And that's the mentality. You've got to wake up with that, because those perfect days, how many of those do you have in the year, right? I mean, maybe a couple of handfuls, maybe those where it's like the perfect storm of goodness, that everything's going right and everything's going perfect and you're working optimally. It doesn't happen that often. So life's going to beat you down every single day. It's a fight. You wake up and you're in a fight from the beginning, whether it's you're fighting, the alarm clock, or fighting not going to the gym, or fighting not, wanting to see a certain person at work or have this engagement or this, that, and the other. It's a fight. No matter how you look at it, it's a fight. How are you going to approach that? Are you going to approach that positively, or are you going to approach that negatively? And then when you are in the fight, how are you going to attack it? Are you going to attack it from the same direction every time and then hope that the results are eventually going to change? No, definition of insanity. So it's just one of those things where I will do absolutely whatever it takes, come from any direction, to accomplish my goal. And there's nothing that's going to stop me. Nobody's going to say no. I'm not going to fail. I may not know how I'm going to win, but I know that I'm not going to fail. So it's just going through with that try and phase me. And then it starts becoming as, bring it on. What do you got for me today? And that's part of the whole thing and my whole deal of raising your horn in LinkedIn, right? It's just telling people to bring it on. The daily fight's coming, so why not welcome it? Flip the script around on the fight.
Today's episode is sponsored by my favorite jewelry company, Omnia. Omnia blends genuine crystals with cutting-edge NFC technology to create the world's first smart crystal bracelet. This bracelet connects to the Elevate web application, giving you a membership to over 200 self-care resources, from meditations to journals to breathing exercises and so much more. Visit discoveromnia.com and use code MindsetPodcast for 40% off. DiscoverOmnia.com, your key to wellness. I love that. Yeah, that's really fantastic. I want to know, you mentioned earlier on the show, not too long ago, about 3 deployments and then you become a SEAL. What was it like your first deployment as a Marine versus when you were a SEAL?
I think they were both very, very similar. Well, actually similar but different. My first tour in the Marines was operational, and we went into hostile fire zones, but was not direct combat. My first deployment in the SEALs was. So, but I already cut my teeth in the Marine Corps anyways. So it worked out all right. First one in the Marines was tough because it was being away from family, right? And I had already was married and had a kid on the way. She was pregnant, and that was really, really tough. Having to leave that. And I remember sitting in a platoon hut, just going. And again, one of those mindsets, one of those things of, am I really supposed to be doing this? Because I hate leaving them. Stuff could happen. Things happen, this, that, and the other. You don't know. And back then there wasn't Zoom. There wasn't. We weren't even in emails. It was all handwritten. This was 2002. So it was tough. And it was just one of those things where it's like, all right, I'm either going to make this or I'm not. Well, might as well look at it from the direction of I'm going to make it. Everything's going to be fine. I don't have to worry about things back in there. Married a great woman, and she can handle everything back there in the rear. I hate that she's got to be alone and pregnant, but this is just the way of things. So that was kind of difficult. But as the deployment went on, plus that one deployment, we got extended another 3 months too. But I was very, very fortunate, and my battalion commander actually let me come back for 10 days, and I made the birth of my first son by 3 days. So I was home for 3 days, smoked, and then she had the baby. So that was super, super cool to be able to be there for his birth. And then went back, and I was in Korea at the time, and went back and executed everything. It was fine. Really brought my morale up. Everything was good to go. So it was an interesting deployment. Just go there and do your job. It's focus on the job or focus on the work. SEALs, it was like, okay, here we go again, and it was like, all right, well, we're going to do it at this capacity, and it's kind of like business as usual. It was leaving the family and leaving it in this capacity and knowing the fights that we were going to go into. Like I said, it's different, but same. It was on another level, just because of the job and the mission that we were doing. But, it was just one of those things I had to push through. So, hey, you got here. This is what you wanted. You're doing exactly where you're supposed to be. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Do it to the best of your ability. Come back and we'll work through it. Everything will be fine. And then we'll, saddle up and it's time to go to the next one. Very, very interesting. The differences, the way things worked, the evolution of the war, because my first, like I said, 2002, 2003, that was my first deployment in the Marine Corps. And first deployment in the teams was 2010. So very, very different in where the war in the world was. So the mindset had to shift a little bit in order to make everything work just right,
Yeah. You said in the beginning when you went into BUDS, the cultural shock, it was challenging for you. You were a leader right away. What was your biggest challenges? What was like the most typical things that you had to face throughout that time?
It's kind of funny. My buddies, the twin brothers that got me into the teams, they're like, dude, you're not going to have any problem at BUDS. They said, here's going to be your issue. Your issue is going to be dealing with the daily baloney, all the malarkey that they're going to be putting up with, the inspections and all the little nuances, this, that, and the other, and all the little mind games that it's just like, come on, man, I've been through this. Do I really need to? Come on. But everybody else hasn't. So they had to go through it. So they said, that's going to be the frustrating part. And they weren't wrong. So, but what I did was I had to shift my mentality to kind of a more comical stance, very sarcastic individual. So being able to kind of take jokes and then joke back with the instructors and then not have to worry about like, just go, all right, cool. I'm going to go have to go hit the surf. I know I'm going to drop for push-ups. I know I'm going to have to go do bear crawls all over the place till my hands bleed, whatever. But none of that mattered because it was keeping the humor kind of kept everything light. And it kept a good actually rapport with the instructors because they see the same things every class, day in, day out. They're seeing the same things over and over again. So they see some idiot that comes through and challenges them a little bit and talks back, and they kind of welcome it because it's a joke. And the funny thing is that it turned out with a lot of the instructors, we had tread the same ground. It's just I was there in the Marines and they were there in the teams. So there was a lot of times like, when Iraq, that we were in the same places. So we swapped stories and it was cool seeing it from a different lens. And then it's like, all right, well, we got to flip back into, instructor student mode. And then that was it. But It was a very, very interesting experience.
Now, how was Hell Week for you? What did you have anything break on you?
Yeah. I went through Hell Week with a broken pelvis. Yeah, it was awesome. So
did you know? I mean, assuming, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. You didn't want to roll.
No. Well, so because of my seniority, I didn't know how many rolls I had in me, or I didn't know what I had left. All I know is that I needed to pass the Hell Week milestone. The Thursday before Hell Week started on Sunday. Thursday before Hell Week, we were doing log PT, and it was forever lunges. Okay, so we had the log. We were on. I know you trained with this. Did you were out in Coronado?
No. Santa Monica.
Oh, okay, totally different. Got it. So, have you ever been to the Buds compound?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay, so you know Demo Pit Road?
Okay.
Okay, so right next to the O course, there's this soft sand road that goes down to the demolition pits where they do the final exercise in Hell Week. It's about 1.5 miles down. So what we were tasked to do was, with the boat crew, take the log and do lunges down Demo Pit Road to the demo pits and back. Right, so 3 miles lunges. That's why I call it forever lunges. Really hard-headed as a Marine and just as an individual in general. But I didn't want to drop the log, because I knew if you drop the log, you're going to have to go to the back of the line. And it's just going to get so much worse, because you want to do the pace to be a winner, right? You get there first, you get a break, you get to drop the log, take a water break. You don't, you turn back around, just keep lunging back the other way, right? So it's just continue the pain train. Probably about 2/3 of the way down, the boat crew, we were already wet and sandy. The boat crew dropped, the log was slipping, and they like drop it, and I'm like, no, catch it. So I'm on the end, and as I was catching it and going down with it, I lunged. The log dropped, hit my hip, and I turned down, and I actually felt it just go. And it was the under loop of your pelvis, the pubic rami bone. It actually popped in half. So that was awesome, and it was one of those things where it immediately went numb. It was like pain and then numb, and then I could feel a little down here. So it was like bones grinding together, right? Every time I lunged, and made it through log PT. Went and told the instructor that was in charge of us, and I said, "Hey man, I think something's wrong." And he's like, and of course you get "What's wrong with you?" And I'm going, "No, dude, I think something's seriously wrong." And they go, "All right, we'll go to medical." Go to medical, get an X-ray. Sure enough, bone's broken. Well, we had med checks. That next to see Friday was a run in the morning, and then we had med checks before going into Hell Week on Sunday. So went into med checks, went and talked to the officer in charge of the medical department there, and he was a former Devil Doc, right? So Devil Doc meaning that he's a corpsman. So all the corpsmen in the Marine Corps are in the Navy, so are the chaplains. So he had served in the Fleet Marine Forces before and was in charge of a battalion aid station at an infantry unit in the Marines. So he's very, very familiar with Marine Corps culture, policies, things like that. And he had a little paperweight, a wooden paperweight that was a carve out of Chesty, the bulldog, the emblem of the mascot of the Marine Corps. He had that on his desk. And I looked at the doc and I go, "Hey man, so what's the worst that could happen?" He goes, if you land on it wrong, or something goes, something goes sideways with the way that you lunge, or you get hit, like you get surf hit and slam into a rock or something like that. He said the bone could, sliver off and then sever one of there's not only a nerve bundle, but there's also a bunch of, arteries and veins that are inside your pelvis. He goes, those could get severed. You could internally bleed out and die. And I went, okay, so that's the worst. Got it. So he goes, okay, what's most likely can happen? He goes, you'll go through a lot of pain, but you'll be okay. And I went, okay. And I looked at him. I actually asked him, I said, "Hey man, what do you think I should do?" Doc didn't say a word. He took that Marine Corps bulldog and just put it right in front of me, and then just put his hands together and looked up at me. And I went, "I'm picking up what you're putting down. Sign me up. Let's do this." And then he said, "All right, medically good to go." That was it. From the first part of Hell Week, I'll never forget breakout. It was so bad. As soon as the instructors came in, I was in there. The other guys were in there resting. I tried to get some shut eye, but you can't sleep when you know what's coming. And as soon as the old heat tab hits the horizon, it's not long before the freaking party's about to start. I just sat and I rested a little bit, and then once the sun went down, I got up and I started stretching, and because I knew that it was coming, and it turned into a 5.5 day prayer session where God and I got really tight, and I just, whatever you can do to take the pain away, because med checks for Hell Week We started Sunday afternoon, late afternoon, and then med checks weren't until Tuesday. So I had to suck it up from Sunday to Tuesday, and then they could finally get me Toradol shots. And the Toradol shots only lasted 12 hours anyway, which is kind of funny. You get the shot in the morning, and then when the night crew shows up, who are like the tough, rough and tumble crew, I'm feeling everything anyway. So it's just like, good grief. But any little bit that they could take away, it was fine. But yeah, when breakout went down, they started off hitting the surf, coming back, and the crew that I went into was 8-count bodybuilders. And I remember doing 8-count bodybuilders with one leg back and one leg forward because I couldn't extend my leg all the way. And I'm just like, holy cow. And I just couldn't focus on the pain. I had to focus on the job. I was still the class leader, so I had to, keep accountability of the guys. And I just had to be completely and totally mission focused, think nothing of self, only of selfless, only of other people. And by shifting my mindset, not that I worked internally, but it's very easily to go internal when you're hurt. But to take that mentality and go, hey, look, this is my main focus. What's my goal? Focus on that goal. And this is like, well, this is one of those whatever it takes moments. Well, put your money where your mouth is. Let's see where we go from here. I could have stopped on Wednesday and, called it a day and gotten forward rolled. But I was like, no, man, I want full bennies. So I can't. And they offered that. The docs offered that to me. And I went, nope, not doing it. Go keep pushing. I'm going till the end. And you can kind of see, because the people that were taking the pictures when we secured from Hell Week, it's almost like a 3-phase thing where we're all standing up, and then it's like, all right, hey, down on one knee in the back. And you could see me just with that wretched pain face trying to take a knee at the end, because it was like it was over. And then that's when all the pain started hitting me, because it's almost like I wasn't feeling it as I was going through Hell Week. But afterwards, once that flag came over the berm and all the instructors were there and we were secured, it's just like that's when the pain hit me. And I was like, oh my word. But you can actually see some of the pictures with the wincing face. But yeah, I went back, grabbed my brown t-shirt, got my pizza and Gatorade, and I think I slept for 18 hours straight after that. And then went to medical and took a class roll after that. And then I came back 2 classes later and picked up right after Hell Week.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That is... Oh, wow. What a fighter. Oh, yeah. You were not going down. So did even quitting didn't even cross your mind throughout Buds?
No. Not at all. And so I turned 30 Buds also. So I don't recommend that for all those people listening. If you're going to go through Buds, do it as a young person, because you got to wake up a little bit earlier and just go, oh, God. And I've heard guys joke before that, if they had the bell next to your rack, you would have been more likely to ring it. But I was so anti the bell because I had, it's like I had all my eggs in one basket, everything that it took just to get there. All the people that were dependent on me, I couldn't look my family in the face knowing I was a failure. And my 2 bros that were already in the SEAL teams, I mean, we went through a lot together growing up, and I couldn't let them down. And it just became a what's next? What's next? Is that all you got? What's next? What's next? So yeah, I felt the pain. Yeah, it stunk. But I mean, like I said, you pass through all the little great equalizers, and you had little failures here and there, and it's okay. Well, how are you going to deal with failure? Well, Buds is real good about teasing that out. They'll sometimes even put you in positions where you're going to fail, and then are you going to crumble, or are you going to get back on the saddle and keep going? So it's that test of resiliency. So I had a lot of good support on the back end, but yeah, there was no choice for me. When the class gets secured from Buds, the class leader has to go back to the bell and ring the class out, right? And so you have to do ding, 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 and say, hey, we're secured, we made it. Class 275, you're secured. I didn't even want to do that. I asked the instructor, I said, hey, can my LPO do it? And they're like, and of course they have a couple of explicatives for me. And then they're like, get back there and ring it. I didn't even want to touch the rope. And I go, you're sure if I do this, it doesn't mean I quit, right? No, idiot. Everybody does this. I'm going, So even that, it was killing me, even securing the class, because even though I knew what it meant, but I was just so anti the bell. And Hell Week, they carry the bell in the stanchion. They have it's with the truck, because usually it's back at first phase on the grinder, and that's where you have to go back to ring out and quit. But Hell Week is a little something special. They have a little stanchion that they put on the back of the truck, and it goes around with the class. So, at any time and at your own convenience, you can quit.
You mentioned that they're like, they know you're going to fail and they want to see when you're going to crumble. What, tell us about a time or, where they knew you were going to fail.
A lot of times they would do it with accountability. There's sometimes you come out on top and you don't fail and you really make them mad. That happened in Hell Week one time. They actually stole a couple of my guys and were holding them behind one of the little buildings because they didn't think I would have, one, seen them, but two, would give a false report, which they were trying to do. When I went down, I remember when the LPO and I went up there, I'm like, hey, they took these two guys and they're out back right now. They're right around that building. And he goes, what? I said, yeah, man, I just got lucked out and I happened to be facing the direction and I saw them snag both of them and take them out. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what they're trying to do here. We went and they go, all right, everybody line up. Everybody getting height order. All right, we're gonna count off. We all count off. And they're like, you're missing two bodies. I'm like, no, I'm not. And then they go, what? I said, well, here, I'm reporting this many people present and two people behind that building over there. And they go, what? I said, just walk over there. And then they walked over there and like, they were so mad because they wanted to beat us, but they couldn't, right? Because that wouldn't have been fair on their part, but it's like, we won. But another time, I remember in third phase, we were doing a demo range, and there was some demo that went missing. And we're like, what the heck? And it turned out one of the instructors had actually taken it. And they were challenging us to challenge the instructors. And it was one of those things where it's just like, well, it was put in our heads so much to not go against these guys that what they said was gospel and that was it. And we said, we have no idea where it is. So we took a beating as a class, and then the instructor came out at the end and went, all you had to do is ask. And we're going, okay. Got it. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
What was maybe it was, whether it was, through all your years of serving in combat, or is there a loss that happened that became one of your greatest teachers?
I think that's kind of almost tied to one of my hardest decisions I ever had to make as a leader. We were tying down. We were wrapping up the end of Afghanistan. We had, 3 platoons in the SEAL troop, and only 2 of the troops were going to be able to go to combat. One of them was going to go cover down our interests in Southcom, and I had to sit there with my senior enlisted advisor, and we had to nug out and tell an entire SEAL platoon that they're not going to war. So that's like benching that's like benching Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would you ever do that when the game is on the line, or benching Larry Bird when the shot's on the line? It took us 2 weeks to make that decision. And we sat there and we had whiteboards writing why, the pluses, and it honestly, the only fair way that we could do it was it legitimately came down to performance in garrison, performance in training, and the scores. But then it's like you take the attitudes of the guys that went into it and everything. But coming up with that decision, it felt like a failure because I feel like I could, if there was something I could have done to convince the CO that we need to take all of our guys, but there was no place to put them, right? You're only allotted so many people, with the deployment orders going down range. So there was literally nothing we could do. It's like, no, we're taking 2 platoons and that's it. 1 platoon staying back. That decision, I don't know if it's necessarily the biggest failure, but it was definitely the hardest decision I ever had to make. And that was to see those guys' faces when I said, hey, you guys are not going to Afghanistan, because that's what we trained for, right? That's why we are who we are. And knowing that this is going to be probably the last combat tour, that the NSW is going to do, that one stung, and that one stuck with me. You've
mentioned a lot of decision making from the very beginning, and starting in the Marines, and then being squad leader right away when you go through buds and all that, and now as a consultant, especially for businesses, decision making is something that we do on an everyday basis. We're just deciding what to eat, and
right.
Sometimes that can just be a challenge. How did it help you to make a decision like what you're talking about and live with that decision, and know that not every single decision I make is going to necessarily be the right decision or the one that works, right? But it's a decision that I chose to make, and because I chose to make it, I'm going to go until I need to try a different way or go a different way. So how did you learn? Because also being a leader right away, that comes up with its own challenges. People are looking to you for answers. So how do you develop that?
Yeah, I think a series of mistakes lead to success. And I think that's kind of honestly the road to winning, and the road to success is paved by failures. So there's a difference between failing and being a failure. Okay. Yes, you need to fail, and you will fail at things. Not everybody's a winner. Not everybody wins at everything, but you only become a failure when you stop, when you quit, right? That's when you're a failure. Now, quitting comes in different forms too, but quitting because things get hard and get difficult, that's not acceptable. But it taught me to look at things holistically, right? So the decision is going to be based on whatever the outcome I'm looking for. If I need something to happen quick, hey, I look for an 80% solution. Could I get it wrong? Sure. But I know for the most part, I'm going to be right. But as long as I can do that, that also gives me a little bit of wiggle room. But if I stand around and wait for all the information to get 100% solution on a decision, then it might be too late. So like I said, it just depends on whatever it is that you're going after. If it's one of those things where you're in a business and you have the time to be able to consider all options, then you can move to that 100% decision, or at least closer to it. But it's being able to understand what the decision is that has to be made and what you're going to need to bring to the fight and look at it in order to accomplish that and get to what a win is going to look like. So it's just considering all of your options, but sometimes you don't even know what that is. You learn options through life experiences. So the longer you spend time on planet Earth, the more experience you're going to have and the more you're going to fail in order to be able to bring more to the fight to win the next time.
When you were a leader throughout Buds, everything falls on you. Was there a decision that you made that ended up that went south and affected everybody in a negative way? And how did you, if so, not beat yourself up over it and just move on?
There was humility lessons for me. And I remember we were on a range out at San Clemente Island one time, and we were doing police call, right? So we're done with the range. Everything was done. It was a big demo range, and we were picking everything up. Well, as the line was moving forward, I was moving behind the line and picking up trash. And because some of the guys, they weren't moving in the direction, they were kind of just walking through to get it done because they're like, I don't care about this or whatever. And I was like, all right, well, whatever. I'll just go pick up the little pieces. Everything will be fine. Well, the instructor stopped me and they said, hey, why is the OIC picking up trash? I'm like, well, I told them to pick them up, but hey, man, I'm just picking up the stuff here. And they went, fine, come here. And they come here and they had me stand there and they brought the whole class around. They're like, hey, this guy should not be picking up the trash. And you guys go ahead and drop. Oh, I see, you stand there. And I'm like, okay, this is a bad call. I probably should have stopped everybody, brought it back here. Of course, you going with the attitude of the instructors too, and they're tired and things happen. But I just remember just standing there feeling like the biggest idiot because I tried to drop down and do push-ups in the class and they said, nope, stand up. And having them get punished while I was just standing there when I was just trying to help and pick up trash, that one cut me a little bit deep, and the class kind of looked at it as I, rolled the bus over them. And so I had to stop and kind of explain things to that. This is what my mindset was, and this is where I was at. And I was just like, I just wanted to get it done. The instructors wanted something different. So it's sometimes even when you think things are one way, the leadership wants to go another way, and sometimes you got to go that way.
Did that affect the way your team was with you after that? Sure. And how did you get that back into a more cohesive group?
Well, it was trying to make people understand, because some of the guys that are there, they're kids. They don't understand stuff. They, like I said, at the time I was cruising in on 31 at the time. It was one of those things where time kind of heals wounds, and it's moving away from self and moving towards selfless, of thinking it's not just get the job done. It's get the job done to where everybody's involved, everybody's doing what they need to be doing. And if you're not working together as a cohesive unit and one person ends up going astray, it's just like being a good shepherd, right? You want everybody in the stock and go in the right direction. So it's being able to step back, step outside yourself, and be able to look at the group and go, is everyone going the right direction? Is everyone rowing in the right direction? That's kind of like a ship. If you have one person making old school, Viking ships or whatever, right? Or your Peloponnesian Wars in Greece. So if one person's rowing the wrong direction, everybody else is rowing the other way, the ship's not as fast as it would be, right? So you have to have everybody rowing in unison in the right direction. And it's up to me to be able to have the rudder going the right way and to be able to see, hey, you're getting out of step. This is this. And hey, is my rudder looking right? Are we going straight? Is it my fault? So it's, taking everything in and looking at things holistically. So taking a wrap off, stepping back, looking at yourself and making sure everything's going the right direction towards success and whatever that end state is. That's helped out not only in the teams, but also in helping businesses optimize their work outside.
Let's talk about leadership a little bit on how we can be leaders even if we're not in that high level executive position.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I mean, so just how to be a leader as a small unit.
What steps can we do to become better leaders? Because, for someone that's getting thrown into, let's just say we're on a butts, right? And all of a sudden they just point and they'll be like, you're leader. Like, it's like, well, I've never led. I don't know. What is that? So how did they understand and learn that role of taking on that leadership, like when something like that instantly happens?
Yeah, because somebody will quit or somebody will get hurt, and it could be the boat crew leader. So next thing you know, hey, next guy in line, you've got it. So honestly, we taught that really well, I think, in the Marine Corps, of understanding the job two levels ahead of you, no matter what. Okay, so if you're out in business or something like that, if you already know the job 2 levels above your own, you're already ready to go. You could ascend to those levels because the chances of them bringing you up past that are pretty slim. So, with the Marines, it was, hey, if the fire team leader dies, that's it. But if I know the squad, I can take the squad, but I'm not necessarily going to be ready for the platoon. Okay. Same thing would go in the teams, and it's, the fire team, the squad, and then the platoon. If the leader gets popped or something happens or they get sick or whatever, you have to be ready to assume that next job. So it's a constant learning process. So the Marines do it really well in teaching leadership from day one. Now, even though you might not be a leader, you can be put into that position and still be able to not fail. Now, are you going to? Absolutely, because you don't have the experience. But I try to tell people, look, all you have to do is think about how it is that you want to be led, and then you become that person. Think about all the good leaders and all the bad leaders, and then take all of the qualities that made them good or made them bad, and then make your own Frankenstein monster as far as being a leader, of how you can how it can work with your personality in order to have the best effect on other people. But the key is humility and selflessness. If you are those 2 things alone, you're going to have more successes than failures. I think a lot of problems, especially with today and social media and things like that, and everybody's talking about, oh, it's me, it's improve myself and this, that, and the other. Well, yeah, you can improve yourself, but why are you doing that? You do that so you can help others. And the more you focus on others, the less you focus on self, and you actually get better faster that way. That's kind of, it's a cultivation process. It really is. But understanding, having good judgment, having integrity, being able to establish trust with those people. You do that just by thinking of other people and making sure that they're being taken care of. I'm not saying every little thing as far as down to micromanaging. All I'm saying is all you got to do is care. Sometimes if you go up and ask a person just how they're doing, they say, fine. Okay, well, everybody knows fine doesn't mean fine. So you can dig a little bit deeper, and then you establish more of a relationship. And then they'll tell you, oh, I had a problem with my girlfriend, or, with my brothers, this, that, and the other. Okay, well, that's affecting you. Well, if that's affecting you, maybe sometimes just talking stuff out with them, and you can be like that counselor for them. As a leader, you can establish even counseling sessions, and you should probably quarterly within a business to be able to assess productivity as to how that is that they're doing. Are their weaknesses becoming their strengths? Are they moving towards being better? And hey, what personally do you have going on that we can possibly help out with? But the thing is that they're never going to open up if you don't have that relationship with them. So as a leader, you have to care. Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. How hard was it initially for you in Buds when there is such a high retention rate? So it's like you're wanting to care then they're gone the next hour, and how does that work?
So we started out with 336 people. So it was moving, a monstrous crew around, and Buds is very interesting. It's the only school that I've ever been a part of where they actively tried to tell you to leave. They don't try to keep you, because the thing is that in Buds, that I don't want to keep you. If you can't hack it, I'm not going to try to pull you through, because then when it comes down to in the platoon, when it really, really counts, you're going to fail. So why would I push that guy along? So you kind of have to shift mentality of, yes, you do have to care in a certain capacity, but you can't get hurt and you can't go too far for a guy unless you're like saying, in second and third phase or something like that, and somebody's having problems because they just can't understand the, reading a military grid reference system as far as doing land nav, right? Or say in second phase, they're having some problems with dive physics. That's fine, whatever. That has nothing to do with quitting. It's just some people have the capacity for stuff like that and some people don't. So therefore you marry up the smart guys with the ones that are having problems, and then that's it. If you're having problems with procedures, the dive procedures that, in dive phase then we're going to be out there on the weekends and we're going to be helping each other out. And that's how you're showing care. We're going to go hang out on the weekend. But if you quit, I don't feel anything. It's just, okay, see ya, because I have to move on because there's too many people quitting, So yeah, I get put in charge of the class, but it's mostly just for accountability to make sure nobody wanders, one of the sheep doesn't wander away, but to really care, it's not until they've actually gone through, like, say, Hell Week, that you can start going, all right, I'm going to start making friends with people, because a lot of times if you start making friends really, really quick and that person quits, it then takes from your mental capacity. It's like, well, I thought he was tougher than me. And if he didn't make it, there's no way I'm going to make it. It's like the twins thing, right? So if you have a set of twins and buds, we had a few ourselves, and one twin quits, it's about maybe a 24-hour turnaround before the other one quits. It's just, it has that big of a psychological effect on people. So it's don't make friends quick, care to the point that you need to care, because this isn't going to be your unit. It's just buds. The real care comes when you come to the platoons. It can start in SQT, but when you start spending real time with the guys, that's back at the team in the platoons.
It seems like you've gotten over like a fear of failure. Like, it's Absolutely. Like failure's inevitable. It's going to happen. Like I welcome it, It's the way to success, right? So do you remember your first time that you've considered failing? Or that you have failed?
Well, I didn't really ever consider failing.
Or like that you've happened. I mean, like that. And what I mean by that is like how you consider a failure. Like for myself, I remember like very clearly, like when I was 10 and I got kicked out of a music program for poor performance. And I remember being like to me, that was such an epic failure. But like to other people, they're like, they don't see it that way, and I worked so hard to get back to it and become successful at it. But other people, they don't see it as that failure. But that's how I labeled that one thing. And that, and then I stuck, there's a bunch of things that happened along the way in life that I consider failure. So was there anything and how did you approach that first time?
Are we saying military or are we talking like childhood growing up?
We could go, I would like to go childhood growing up.
Okay, so I grew up as a very highly bullied individual. Back in the 80s, bullying looked a little bit differently than it does now. It was all physical. And that physical led to emotional. So, I hit my current height. I'm 6'4". I hit that when I was 13, 14 years old, and I was all legs, Coke bottle glasses, tight rolled jeans, Steve Urkel suspenders. It didn't go well. And if you look like that and was considered a nerd, that made you a target. And I ended up in lockers. I ended up in dumpsters, just beaten, battered, bruised. It started to wear on me. And it happened for years. And I just took it. And it was one of those things to the point to where I considered almost, eating a bullet. I was sitting there staring at the bullet on the other end, the pistol looking at me. And I heard a voice that said, I'm pretty sure it was my guardian angel, God, however you want to look at it, right? Said, don't do it. I got something for you. And I went, okay. Hammer went back, pistol went down. All right, here we go. My folks are really strict. My dad was really pushed hard on me on grades. And it was study, do this. Very, very strict as far as even playing with my friends and things like that. And then it was like, hey, where'd you get that bruise? Where'd you get that cut? I'm like, I fell. It was that type of scenario where I ran into a door or whatever. I'm just a klutz. But really, I was, like I said, I was getting beat down at school. And it just something happened in my high school years where I went, I'm done. And that was me honestly failing at life. And because I didn't know if I wasn't doing I wasn't popular. I wasn't popular with the ladies. It was just didn't have too many friends. And it was, I had friends that had in very similar situations to me. I don't know if it's necessarily console each other or whatever, but I just got fed up and I went, I'm done. And my family kind of idolized one of my uncles, and he was a former Marine. Then went into was a plank owner in the hostage rescue team for FBI. And I went, all right, I could do that. I'll give that a go. And he went into intelligence in the Marine Corps. So I was like, all right, well, if that's the road, that's what I'm going to take. But I remember that was that first inspection, first personnel inspection. The senior drill instructor was coming by and saying, hey, what MOS do you want to do? What's your military occupational specialty going to be? What do you want to do in the Marines? And I remember he turned the corner in the squad bay, and I went, you know what? I'm gonna take my own path. I want to go to the infantry. I want to be out front. I want to be with all the guns, and I want to be that's where I want to be. I've always run from the fight my entire life. Well, it's time to start running towards it. And that kind of kick-started my never say die, no quit mentality, and kind of just bring it on. And if the pain was coming my way, if I knew I was going to get beaten, if I knew I was going to fail, I would take it in stride and I'd keep going. And I remember when I was at officer candidate school, I remember sitting in front of the platoon commander, and I wasn't doing so hot. I wasn't doing great. I was falling behind on academics. I was doing really well in the field, but I was falling behind in academics. And I'm like, well, is this really the thing for me? And we had the weekend off, and I called my girlfriend, now my wife, and said, hey, would you be mad at me if I didn't make it, if this wasn't for me? And that's kind of when that failure mentality really kind of crept into my head. And what if I am going to fail? What if I'm not good enough? But then again, it was just one of those things where something in the back of my head said, no, man, you got to keep going. All right, cool. So it was approaching that failure. And did I fail at things? Absolutely. Did I always make the best decision? No, not at all. But the thing is that it's the not being able to succumb to that and to let it destroy you. Because you could say, oh, and I'm noticing a lot of kids these days too, because I trained some kids that are going into college football, and you see them and they're just so scared to fail that they think that is over. I don't know if it's social media. I don't know if it's society telling them that nowadays. I don't know. But like, all I can do is tell you, don't be afraid to fail. It's take it in stride. And that's the pathway to success. I always tell people, I had to go through where people had to go through 1 through 6 up before we got 7 up. Right. So it's just, you fail and fail and fail until you get it right. We wouldn't have the light bulb, learn 99 ways how not to make the light bulb. 100th, hey, we're in there. Everything's cool. So you have to have something inside you that says, I want this to the point to where even if I do fail, I'm going to find another way to succeed. And then it almost becomes I'm going to expect failure on some way, shape, or form, on some platform. I'm going to expect failure. But you know what? I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm going to welcome it and see it as a challenge in order to get around it, over it, under it, through it, whatever I have to do to get to that success. And that just kind of cascaded and snowballed over time into where it's just try and stop me, And it's one of those things where it's like, I didn't get that mentality or habit. I wasn't born with it. It happened. My environment, my culture, everything shaped me, and I became what I am now. I didn't come out this way. I was made this way based off of my environment and my inability, hard-headed, stubbornness, however you want to look at it, too dumb to quit. I just said, I'm done. It's enough. I'm going to keep going, and nothing's going to stop me. So that's kind of where I ended up.
It's interesting that you say that. We had Atlas Altman on the show where he mentions targets instead of goals. So having a target that you're going to really hit and go after. Find it so interesting that when we go hit a target, the moment, like I said earlier in the show, we hit a door, we're just like, okay, we didn't follow up with that email. We didn't, we're feeling like we're annoying the other person by emailing and calling 1,000 times. But it's like, I got to hit that target. Who else can I contact? What else can I do? And I remember this story where I think I mentioned this on the show, where there was a father and son. He drops the son off in a neighborhood, and he was going to paint numbers on a home, and for $5. And the father picks the son up and says, "How was it?" And he's like, "Terrible. So many people slammed doors in my face. Nobody wanted, like, it was all negative, right?" And the father was like, "Go back the next day. And every single time you get 45 no's, you're going to get a yes." So the next day, the father picks up the son and was like, "How'd it go?" And he's like, "It was amazing." He goes, "Oh, how?" He goes, "Every single no that I got, I knew I was one no closer to that yes. So once I hit the no, I got another yes." And then, because he said 45 no's, and then you'll get a yes. And I thought it was really interesting. And as someone that goes and reaches out to people all the time, I'm always like, okay, like it usually turns out to like 100 people, and then I get like one response. So it's you get all excited to get to those 100 people, because you know you're gonna hit that point. So I think that's a really, really interesting point, to not give up. And I do think that social media does have a really big effect on it, because we don't share our failures. You know, we share those wins, we share those successes, and we don't see all the stuff that people do outside of that, you know, you don't see the emotions. Like you said, someone's just having a bad day, and then you find, like at work, and then you talk to them and you realize, like, you know, their wife's battling cancer or something like that, or, you know, something's happening with their child, and that's what's making them late every single day and affecting their performance. But we're not seeing that. Instead, we're beating them down even further. And then that's making them feel like even more of a failure, because I can't handle it all, you know, like that type of thing. So what you're saying, I think, is really interesting on how much the environment, childhood, all that, and then it's just you. At the end of the day, it's all you. It's all your choices. You're in that mind, hearing that voice that's cheering you on. And I always tell people, like, you have to be your biggest cheerleader, and that was that voice in your head, and you happen to listen to it, which kudos to you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you know, personally, I'm a Christian, so it's to me, with my relationship has been cultivated through Jesus also, and that's given me internal strength and has brought me through pretty much absolutely anything. So you can't go wrong with the guy that got it all right. So you know, learning from that, the teachings, the Proverbs, everything is just absolutely phenomenal. And honestly, it's literally you know, the living word. And I call it the book of life for a reason, because it actually shows you exactly how to live life. And every single lesson that all these people are teaching, it's all been said already. It's all been done. Things don't change. People, for the most part, don't change. So being able to read a person and kind of give them the right guidance, it's all already been done. It's all already been written out for you there. So that's brought me through a whole bunch of stuff as well. So it was one of those things. I wasn't saved when I first heard that voice, and then lo and behold, that's pretty much what it was. So it's not me. It's what can I do through him. It's more active selflessness. It's literally and totally removing self from the situation. And the hits are never going to stop. They're only going to keep coming, you know. I started up a business. It's the same thing. I failed so many different times, and I had all these different leads, and I was like, oh, everything's going to be great, you know, freaking SEAL and Marine and all this experience and everything. I'm just going to be kicking people away and pushing them. You know, business is going to be coming, but it didn't. Right? It took a lot of work, and finally, it's like, all right, well, you got to establish a brand. You have to be able to, what is it that you exactly is that you want to be able to do? And pay military, break things down into threes. Well, my business does three things. We do speaking, you know, through leadership, business optimization, things like that. But the keynote speaking piece, I have a tactical wing, and then we have a strength and conditioning wing. Well, you take the three things that you love the most from the military, and that's what you want to give back to the people. And then and then everything starts to work. And I've got people, you know, I'm training on the side. I've got, you know, as far as, you know, strength is concerned, I've got, you know, good relationship with Westside Barbell and starting to work with those guys. You know, I've got keynote speaking jobs started coming in, and it cascaded, but it's just never quitting. But I had to get so many no's and fail so many times in order to really start, you know, gaining speed. And then life's going to kick you too. I mean, several years ago, it's with the surgeries. All right. Okay. Well, knee surgery came one year, shoulder surgery came another year, hernia came another year. Then the big one came and, hey, you've got a brain tumor, and brain surgery came. And so it was just one thing after the other. And I know that I haven't seen the end of it yet. It's more fights are going to come. They're going to present themselves in a different way. And I just say, bring it. What else you got? What are you going to do to me?
I think it's really interesting that you pointed out, I got all this experience and I'm going to be now doing this business and people are going to be knocking on my doors and that's not reality. Right. Yeah. And I remember that with my children's book, I was like, everyone's going to want to purchase this book. Every school's going to want me at their school. And then when people were like, oh, no, not today, I was like, what do you mean? But I find it really interesting that you take the road of, okay, what am I doing wrong? How can I reshift? How can I see this better to see it through versus I'm just a failure. Let me go do something else. It's like, no, I still want this. I just got to refigure it out. And that's a very, very that's a great mentality.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know how I'm going to win. I just know I'm not going to fail.
Yeah. So what do you have for us, the everyday people, all walks of life, that we can do every day to tap into that untapped potential and to develop the mindset of the never quit attitude for when life kicks us in the teeth?
Discipline can be kickstarted by motivation. Motivation's fleeting. But you have to be able to develop a routine for success. And that means that the way that you may have to reshape how you look at things, you have to really appreciate, and you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror in the morning and go, did I do absolutely everything I could, this past day? And am I going to do everything I can to be able to get towards whatever my goal is? If you don't have a goal, get one, right? Because that's the only way that you're going to even come close to getting disciplined towards something. And then just baby step it, start it. So it's like starting a diet, right? If you go all in and start taking everything out, that's not sustainable. But if you start picking apart little things here and there, lo and behold, I've just changed my complete routine and I have new habits and they're healthy, right? You have to, and everything in life I always say is a choice. You have to make the choice to want to win, okay? And if you understand that failure is coming, that bad things are going to happen, but no matter what, if you have that goal, all that is just a stepping stone or a little road bump to get to where it is that you want to be. And you got to look at it like this. If the pathway that you chose was easy, everybody'd be doing it, right? But the thing is that all of us, everybody that's at the elite level of whatever job it is that they do, or top tier, top shelf, Fortune 100, whatever, they're all regular people too. No, not one of us, all of us put our pants on one leg at a time. Nobody has a cape. Nobody can fly. We are all regular people. We are all in this fight together. The thing that sets us apart is that we refuse to quit and we will keep going. So to get to that spot, just like I said, I grew to that position. So you may have to put yourself into uncomfortable positions in order to see how you're going to fare. Because if you don't put yourself in there, well, nothing's ever going to change. If you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got. And if you're not happy with that, and that's not what you want, here comes the choice. You have to make the choice to change. You have to do something different. And all you have to do is make little bitty changes in your routine. Say, hey, my goal, I'm good with my work. I'm good with most things, but I want to sleep more. I want to go to the gym. I want to exercise a little bit more. I want to start eating better. Well, start picking little pieces apart of that at a time. And how do you eat a whale, right? One bite at a time. So it may take a minute, but you'll get there. So now I know this is going to happen. I know this is coming. Now I'm making the active choice to, one, be positive about it, but two, that no matter what road stop comes in front of me, I'm going to find a way around it and it won't stop me because I know it's coming. Welcome the fight.
I love that. Was great. Thank you so much. I really had a great time chatting with you. You gave some really fantastic, relatable advice. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone that's listening. Please go like, share, comment, subscribe, become a Patreon member so you get access to our bonus episodes. And I will see you all next week. Thank you.